Commander Tay stared at the flickering emergency lights of the bridge, his four-fingered hands gripping the command chair tightly. The eternal light had been his home for 12 cycles, and now it was nothing but a drifting tomb. The ship's sleek design and advanced technology, once a point of pride in the Confederation fleet, now mocked him with their uselessness. "Life support status?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Officer Hana looked up from her console, her silver eyes dimmed with exhaustion. 8 days remaining at current capacity, Commander. 10 if we shut down the lower decks entirely. Tay nodded grimly. The quantum drive explosion had taken their engineer and damaged the communication array beyond repair. They were stranded in what the Confederation chart simply labeled Sector 447, unexplored, uncharted, and far from any established trade routes. "The distress beacon is still transmitting on all frequencies," reported Hana, her voice hollow. They both knew what went unsaid. The Confederation wouldn't come. Tay rose from his chair and walked to the viewport. Stars stretched endlessly before him, beautiful and indifferent to their suffering. The Galactic Confederation had existed for 30,000 years, spreading their civilization across 17 systems. They had built wonders, eliminated disease, and created a society of perfect calculation and reason. And yet, when the resource calculations indicated rescue missions had less than 40% success probability, protocol dictated abandonment. Efficiency, above all. The greatest good for the greatest number. A cold equation that now meant 73 crew members would die alone in the dark. "The crew should know," said Quan, the ship's tactical officer. His uniform hung loosely on his frame. They had all lost weight during these 2 months of rationing. "Know what?" Tay asked sharply. "That our own people have written us off as a reasonable loss? That the civilization we proudly served considers us expendable?" "They deserve the truth," Quan replied simply. Tay's shoulders sagged. He was right. Of course. The crew had maintained discipline admirably even as hope dwindled. Many still believed the Confederation would bend their own rules to save the Eternal Light's prestigious crew. "I'll address them this evening," Tay decided, "after the system diagnostics are complete." 3 hours later, the crew gathered in the main hall. Usually used for diplomatic functions, the space now felt cavernous with the assembled crew looking thin and tired in their once pristine uniforms. "By now you all understand our situation," Tay began, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest. "Our quantum drive is beyond repair. Our communication array can only broadcast, not receive. We are far from any charted Confederation territory." He paused, seeing the hope still lingering in some younger crew members' eyes. "I must be clear. The Confederation's rescue protocols are explicit. At our last known coordinates, with the resources available to nearby outposts, the probability calculation for a successful rescue falls below the required threshold." A murmur passed through the crowd. Some had already accepted this truth while others received it like a physical blow. "This means no rescue ships will be deployed. We are on our own." Junior Officer Min stepped forward, her voice shaking. "But, Commander, the Eternal Light is carrying vital research data. Surely that changes the calculation." Tay shook his head. "The data was transmitted during our last regular communication. Its safe arrival was confirmed." "So we're expendable now," said someone from the back. Tay couldn't argue. The Confederation's emotional restraint, once considered the pinnacle of evolved thinking, now seemed like a fatal flaw. Their own people would let them die because the numbers didn't favor rescue. "We continue broadcasting our distress signal on all frequencies," Tay said firmly. "We conserve power and extend life support as long as possible. We may be beyond Confederation space, but there are other civilizations. Someone might hear us." Few looked convinced. The Confederation had mapped all known spacefaring civilizations. If they were beyond those charts, their only hope would be a species the Confederation hadn't yet encountered, a statistical improbability. As the days passed, Tay maintained his routine. He checked systems, recorded his log, and walked the ship's corridors, offering what comfort he could to his crew. Some had stopped eating to extend supplies for others. Some spent hours at the viewport, watching the stars. Others slept more and more, slipping away from reality. On the seventh day, with life support warnings blaring hourly, Tay sat alone in his quarters reviewing crew files. He wanted to remember each of them, their accomplishments, their homes, the families that would never know what happened to them. The Confederation would mark them as lost in service and calculate the resource allocation for the next generation of officers. A sharp knock interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Hana burst through the door, her expression transformed. "Commander, we've detected an approaching vessel." Tay felt a surge of hope before tamping it down. "Confederation? No, sir. Unknown configuration. Nothing in our databases." Hana's eyes were wide. "They're receiving our distress call, Commander. They're coming for us." Tay rushed to the bridge where the view screen showed a distant light growing, steadily brighter. The vessel moved with purpose, adjusting course directly toward them. "How did they find us?" Quan asked, voice barely above a whisper. "They responded to our call," said Hana, checking her readings. "They're transmitting on multiple frequencies, trying to establish communication." The ship drew closer, and Tay could now make out its strange design, bulky in places with odd protrusions and what looked like makeshift repairs. It wasn't sleek like Confederation vessels, but it moved with surprising speed. "They're hailing us," Hana reported. "Audio only. The language is—" "Wait, they're trying different languages." "Put it through," Tay ordered. Static filled the bridge, then a voice, speaking broken but recognizable Galactic Standard. "Distressed vessel, this is Captain Reyes of the UNSC Dauntless. We received your call for help. Hold tight. We're coming to get you." Tay exchanged glances with his bridge crew. None of them recognized the designation UNSC. These weren't Confederation rescuers. They were something else entirely. "Reply." Tay ordered, his voice steady despite the hope threatening to overwhelm him. "Tell them we're here. Tell them we're waiting." For the first time in months, the bridge of the Eternal Light filled with something that had been missing since the accident. The sound of laughter, shaky, disbelieving, but unmistakably alive. Officer Hana hadn't left her station in 26 hours. Her silver eyes burned from staring at the communication panel, monitoring the approaching vessel's transmissions. The rest of the bridge crew watched the main view screen in silence as the unknown ship grew from a distant speck to a recognizable form. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," whispered Quan, leaning forward. "Those engine configurations." He was right. The approaching ship defied Confederation design principles. Where Confederation vessels were sleek and symmetrical, this craft appeared almost cobbled together, sections of different materials patched onto a central frame, with engines that glowed an alarming shade of blue. "Magnify," ordered Commander Tay. The image sharpened, revealing more details. The hull bore scorch marks and what appeared to be hasty repairs. Text was painted on the side in unfamiliar characters, alongside a symbol, a circle with lines radiating outward like a simplified star. "UNSC Dauntless," Tay read aloud, pronouncing the alien words carefully. "Any information in our databases?" "Nothing, Commander," replied Hana, her fingers dancing across her console. "No match for the designation UNSC in any Confederation. Records, they're completely unknown." That was both troubling and exciting. The Confederation prided itself on its comprehensive knowledge of all spacefaring civilizations. An unknown species with faster-than-light capability suggested either extremely recent technological advancement or deliberate avoidance of Confederation space. "They're trying another transmission," Hana reported. "Audio and visual this time." Tai straightened his uniform, a pointless gesture given its worn state after months of rationing, but habits of diplomatic protocol died hard. "Accept the transmission." The view screen flickered and a face appeared. The bridge crew gasped collectively. The being looked remarkably similar to their own species, but with key differences: rounded ears, a wider mouth, and most strikingly, only 2 eyes instead of the Confederation standard 4. The skin tone was darker than their own silvery complexion. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the UNSC Dauntless," the being said, speaking slowly in accented but understandable galactic standard. "We picked up your distress signal. Am I speaking with the vessel's commander?" Tay stepped forward. "I am Commander Tay of the Galactic Confederation vessel, Eternal Light. Your assistance is unexpected, but greatly appreciated. Our situation is critical." The captain, Reyes, nodded. "We gathered that from your signal strength. Our readings show your life support systems are nearly depleted. We're preparing a boarding team with emergency supplies. Can your airlocks still function?" "Airlock 3 on the port side remains operational," Tay confirmed, amazed at how quickly these strangers moved to action. In the Confederation, there would be hours of risk assessment first. "Good. We'll dock there in approximately 45 minutes. Prepare your crew." The captain paused, then added with what appeared to be a facial expression of reassurance, "Don't worry, we've got you." When the transmission ended, the bridge erupted into questions. Who are they? How did they find us? What do they want in return? Tay raised his hands for silence. "We don't have time for speculation. We have 45 minutes to prepare for their arrival. Quan, assemble a security team, respectful but cautious. Hana, gather all the information we have on their transmissions and ship configuration. Everyone else, make yourselves presentable. We are still representatives of the Confederation." As they dispersed to their tasks, Junior Officer Min approached Tay privately. "Commander, their response time, it doesn't make sense." Tay tilted his head questioningly. "Our distress beacon has a range of 16 light-years in optimal conditions," Min explained. "Even if they detected it at maximum range and immediately changed course, the travel time would be much longer than 2 months," Tay finished, understanding dawning. Unless they have drive technology superior to ours," Min concluded, "or they were much closer than any charted civilization should be." This raised troubling questions, but Tay had no time to dwell on them. His crew was counting on him to ensure their survival, and right now, these strangers offered their only hope. The 45 minutes passed in a flurry of activity. The crew straightened their quarters, donned their cleanest remaining uniforms, and gathered what little they had to offer as diplomatic gifts. Though Tay suspected their rescuers weren't interested in the traditional Confederation exchanges of technology or knowledge. At the appointed time, Ty stood with his reception team at Airlock 3. The ship's systems reported successful docking procedures. Through the small viewport in the airlock door, they could see movement on the other side. "Pressurization complete," announced the ship's automated system. "External atmosphere compatible with life support parameters." The airlock cycled open with a hiss. 4 beings entered the Eternal Light, all similar to Captain Reyes, but with varying heights, builds, and skin tones. They wore fitted garments in dark colors with patches bearing symbols and text. Most striking were the containers they carried, clearly emergency supplies. The leader stepped forward, removing a helmet, to reveal short dark hair. "Lieutenant Reed, UNSC Dauntless. Captain Reyes sends her regards. She's coordinating the rescue operation from our ship." Tay performed the traditional Confederation greeting, touching his fingertips to his forehead. "I am Commander Tay. Your assistance is welcome." The human mimicked the gesture awkwardly but with obvious respect. "We've brought emergency rations, portable oxygen generators, and medical supplies. Our engineer wants to assess your life support system right away." Without waiting for formal permission, a breach of Confederation protocol that Tay found himself not minding at all, the humans began distributing supplies. One wearing a band with a medical symbol began scanning the crew with a handheld device. "How did you find us?" Tay asked finally, the question he'd been holding back. "We're well outside charted space." Lieutenant Reed looked up from the crate he was opening. "We picked up your signal 12 days ago. It was faint but distinctive. Definitely artificial and in distress. We were on an exploration mission already, so Captain Reyes diverted us immediately." "You changed your mission for unknown aliens?" Quan asked incredulously. Reed looked confused by the question. "Of course, it was a distress call." He said it, as though no other response was conceivable. Our people, Tay began carefully. The Confederation would not have done the same. Reed shrugged, continuing to unpack supplies. Well, that's your people's way. Ours is different. On Earth, that's our home world. We've had a saying for centuries. Any sailor who ignores a distress call deserves to drown alone. Bit harsh, maybe, but it gets the point across. We help because someday, we might need help too. As the humans moved through the ship, setting up equipment and assessing damage, Tay watched with growing amazement. They worked with urgency but not panic, showing a practical competence that seemed at odds with their seemingly haphazard vessel. "Commander," called Hana from nearby. They're speaking to each other in their native language. Our translators are struggling, but I'm catching something interesting. They're not just helping us, they're excited about meeting us. This is apparently the first sentient alien species they've encountered. Tay felt a chill run down his spine. These humans had diverted their mission and risked their lives to rescue complete strangers. Not just aliens, but the first aliens they'd ever met. The Confederation, with 30 millennia of interspecies relations, had calculated his crew wasn't worth saving. These humans, newcomers to the stars, had never even questioned whether they should try. As Lieutenant Reed approached with a status report, Tay realized that the signal that saved them wasn't just the distress beacon from the eternal light. It was a signal of something far more powerful, a reminder of something the Confederation had forgotten long ago. Captain Elena Reyes stepped through the airlock onto the eternal light, 8 hours after her crew began emergency repairs. "Commander," Tay had been expecting her. Lieutenant Reed had mentioned she wanted to personally meet the alien commander once the immediate crisis was stabilized. What Tay hadn't expected was her appearance. While the rescue team wore utilitarian uniforms, Captain Reyes arrived in what was clearly a formal dress uniform, dark blue with gold trim and insignia that caught the light. A diplomatic gesture, Tay realized. She had taken time to present herself properly despite the emergency situation. "Commander Tay," she said, extending her hand. "Captain Elena Reyes, United Nations Space Command." Tay hesitated before mimicking the gesture, allowing their hands to meet in what appeared to be a customary greeting. Her grip was firm but brief. "Captain, your crew has been remarkably efficient. They've already extended our life support capacity by 6 days." Reyes smiled. "That's just the beginning. Lieutenant Kim believes your main systems can be partially restored with the parts we've brought. Not enough for your quantum drive, unfortunately, but enough to keep your people alive while we transport you to safety." Tay gestured toward the ship's conference room. "Perhaps we could speak more comfortably. I have many questions, as I'm sure you do as well." The conference room, once a showcase of Confederation elegance, now looked shabby after months of minimal power. The lighting flickered occasionally, and the temperature was cooler than comfort standards to conserve energy. Captain Reyes didn't seem to notice or mind. "Your vessel is remarkable," she said, looking around appreciatively. "The technology level is clearly advanced beyond our own in many areas. And yet, you were able to receive our distress call from 12 light-years away," Tay noted. "That suggests your detection technology is quite sophisticated." Reyes nodded. "Deep space signal detection is an area where we've made significant progress. Necessity-driven, really. Our colonies are spread out, often in regions with natural interference." Colonies. Tay's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of surprise in his species. "How many worlds has your species settled?" 11 so far, with 3 more in early development stages, plus various outposts and research stations." She said it casually, as if this was unremarkable. Tay struggled to hide his astonishment. The Confederation had taken thousands of years to expand to 17 systems with careful calculation and planning at every stage. "And how long has your species been capable of faster-than-light travel?" he asked carefully. "Just under 70 years, Reyes replied. Tay nearly forgot his diplomatic composure. 70 years? The Confederation had existed for 30,000 years, and these humans had gone from planetary civilization to multi-system colonization in less than a century? That's... An aggressive expansion rate, he managed to say. Reyes shrugged. Some think so. Others believe we're being too cautious. Politics, I'm sure you have them too. Before Tay could respond, the ship's communication system chimed. Commander, came Hana's voice. The human repair team is requesting permission to access the engine core. They believe they can restore auxiliary power. Permission granted, Tay responded automatically, then turned back to Reyes. Your people work quickly. We're improvising, to be honest, Reyes admitted. Your technology is different from ours, but the principles seem similar enough. Lieutenant, Kim has a gift for understanding systems she hasn't seen before. As if summoned by the mention, the door slid open and a human female entered. Her uniform was stained with some kind of lubricant, and a bandage was wrapped around her left hand. Captain, Commander, she nodded to both. We've isolated the primary power coupling. With some modifications, we can bypass the damaged sections and restore about 30% capacity to the main systems. Excellent work, Kim, Reyes responded. How long? 4 hours, maybe 5. She held up her bandaged hand with a small smile. Had a little disagreement with your engine housing, Commander. Sharp edges. Tay stared at the injury. You should receive proper medical attention. We can assign another technician. Kim waved dismissively. It's just a cut. Already stopped bleeding. I'd rather finish what I started. After she left, Tay turned to Reyes with concern. Your crew member is injured. In the Confederation, she would be relieved of duty immediately. For a minor injury? Reyes looked puzzled. That would be her call, not mine. She knows her limits. But protocol sometimes gets in the way of getting things done, Reyes finished. Don't worry, Commander. If it were serious, she'd be in our medbay. Kim's just eager to help your people. That was becoming increasingly clear to Tay. This eagerness to help that all the humans seemed to share. It wasn't just their mission directive, it seemed deeply ingrained in their behavior. Perhaps you could explain something to me, Captain, Tay said carefully. When we first made contact, Lieutenant Reed mentioned that helping was simply your way. Yet in my experience, interspecies assistance usually involves clear expectations of reciprocity. What does your United Nations Space Command expect in return for this rescue? Reyes looked genuinely surprised by the question. Expect? Nothing specific. Knowledge, perhaps. This is our first contact with a non-human intelligence. That alone makes this the most important mission of my career. No technology transfer requirements? No territorial concessions? Tay pressed. Commander, Reyes leaned forward, her expression serious. We responded to a distress call. People were in danger. That's all the reason we needed. Tay fell silent, processing this concept that seemed so foreign to Confederation thinking. The idea of helping without calculation of return benefit was considered primitive, a mark of pre-rational civilizations that hadn't yet optimized their resource allocation models. And yet, here was a species that had spread to 11 worlds in 70 years, while the Confederation had taken millennia to reach 17. A commotion in the corridor interrupted his thoughts. The door slid open, revealing one of the human engineers supporting a limping Quan. Sorry to interrupt, the engineer said. There was a power surge in Section 4. Your officer was checking the conduits when it happened. Quan's uniform was singed, and he looked dazed. I miscalculated the energy variance, he admitted, clearly embarrassed. Get him to medical, Tay ordered immediately. Already heading there, the human replied cheerfully. Your medical officer and ours are working together. Fascinating differences in approach, but they're figuring it out. After they left, Tay noticed Reyes watching him with interest. Your crew seems surprised by our help, she observed. Lieutenant Reed mentioned something about your people not responding to distress calls. Tay felt a flush of shame. The Confederation operates on principles of optimal resource allocation. Rescue missions are evaluated based on probability of success and resource expenditure versus potential recovery value. And your ship didn't make the cut, Reyes stated flatly. Our last reported position, combined with our critical system failures, the calculation would have been clear. Tay looked away. The resources required to find and rescue us would outweigh the value of recovery. The value of 73 lives? Reyes asked quietly. The Confederation would say that sentiment is not a rational basis for resource allocation decisions. Tay replied, the words sounding hollow even to himself. Reyes was silent for a moment. You know, humans used to think that way too, or some did. There were times in our history when we calculated the value of lives, made cold equations about who deserved saving, but we learned something important along the way. What was that? Tay asked. That helping others even when it's hard, even when it might not be optimal, makes us stronger, not weaker. She smiled slightly. The moment we start calculating whether someone deserves to be saved is the moment we start losing what makes us human. As if to punctuate her point, the lights in the conference room suddenly brightened, steady, without flickering. The environmental system hummed to life, and warm air began circulating properly. Kim's voice came over the communication system, triumphant despite her obvious exhaustion. Auxiliary power restored, Commander. Life support at 60% and holding. We did it. The cheers that echoed through the ship came from both species, the humans celebrating their success, and the Confederation crew celebrating something they had nearly forgotten. The joy of being valued beyond any calculation. The Dauntless took the crippled Confederation vessel in tow 3 days after first contact. Commander Tay stood at the viewport watching as thick cables connected the two ships, an inelegant but effective solution proposed by the human engineers. It won't be a smooth ride, Lieutenant Kim had warned as she supervised the connection process. Her injured hand was properly bandaged now, but she had indeed never stopped working as she'd promised. Our gravitational compensators will struggle with the extra mass. How long to reach your outpost? Tay asked. At maximum safe towing speed? About 20 days. Kim tapped calculations into her device. We could push harder, but the stress on both vessels would increase exponentially. 20 days. In Confederation. Terms that represented an enormous commitment of resources, fuel, crew time, delayed mission objectives, all for the rescue of strangers. Yet the humans had agreed to it without hesitation. Now 5 days into the journey, Tay had been invited aboard the Dauntless for what Captain Reyes called a proper dinner. He brought 3 of his senior officers, Hana, Quan, and Min, as a diplomatic contingent. The human vessel was a revelation. Where Confederation ships were designed with mathematical precision and aesthetic minimalism, the Dauntless was a study in practical adaptation. Corridors changed width without apparent pattern. Equipment was bolted to walls wherever convenient. Modifications were visible everywhere. Newer technology grafted onto older frameworks. Please excuse our accommodations, Reyes said as she led them through the ship. The Dauntless was originally a colony supply vessel before being recommissioned for exploration. We've adapted her as needed. It's fascinating, said Hana sincerely, examining a junction where 3 different metal types had been expertly welded together. Your engineering philosophy prioritizes function over form. Limited resources encourage creativity, Reyes replied with a smile. We make do with what we have. The ship's mess hall had been transformed for the occasion. The standard tables were covered with cloths, and the lighting had been dimmed. Crew members not on duty were dressed in cleaner versions of their uniforms. It was clearly an important event for them. We've analyzed your nutritional requirements, Reyes explained as they sat down. Our medical officer worked with yours to ensure compatibility. We can't offer authentic Confederation cuisine, but we hope this will be acceptable. The meal that followed was a careful blend of human and Confederation-compatible ingredients. Some dishes worked better than others, but the effort was unmistakable. Human crew members sat interspersed with the Confederation visitors, eager to exchange information. Is it true your ship is over 200 years old? Asked a young human officer sitting beside Min. 212 to be precise, Min confirmed. Confederation vessels are built to last centuries with proper maintenance. Amazing, the human replied. Our oldest operating ships are barely 60 years old and they're mostly ceremonial now. These casual exchanges continued throughout the meal, with both sides carefully navigating cultural differences. Tay noticed how the humans seemed particularly interested in Confederation history, while his officers were fascinated by humanity's rapid technological development. After the meal, Captain Reyes invited Tay to the bridge for a private conversation. The Dauntless command center was smaller than that of the Eternal Light, but hummed with activity even during routine operations. "Your crew seems to work continuously," Tay observed. "The Confederation mandates rest periods to maintain optimal performance." "So do we, theoretically," Reyes said with a slight smile. "But when you're making first contact and conducting a rescue operation simultaneously, enthusiasm tends to override regulations." A warning light flashed on a nearby console, drawing Reyes's attention. She frowned, moving quickly to check the display. "Problem with the number 3 radiation shield," she muttered, then tapped her communication device. "Engineering. What's the status on Shield 3? "Fluctuating, Captain," came the reply. "The strain from the tow is creating microfractures faster than the repair nanites can seal them. We're rotating shield coverage to compensate, but radiation levels in sections 12 through 16 are elevated." "How elevated?" Reyes asked sharply. "Within acceptable emergency parameters," the engineer replied. "Crew in affected areas have been notified to take rad meds." Reyes acknowledged the report, then noticed Tay's concern. "It's a calculated risk," she explained. "The towing process is putting more strain on our systems than we anticipated." "You should release us," Tay said immediately. "The radiation danger to your crew is manageable," Reyes interrupted. "The rad meds will protect them for the duration of our journey. But the long-term effects are worth it," she finished firmly. "We're not abandoning your people, Commander." Tay felt that same disorienting sense of cultural disconnect he'd experienced repeatedly since meeting the humans. In the Confederation, this level of risk for non-critical personnel would be unacceptable. "We don't categorize people as critical or non-critical," Reyes said, her tone suggesting this concept bothered her. "Each life has value." "Even alien lives?" Tay pressed. "You're risking your crew for beings you met less than 2 weeks ago." Reyes leaned against the console, considering her words carefully. 22 years ago, one of our colony ships suffered catastrophic engine failure in deep space. They drifted for months, rationing supplies, watching their children grow weaker. Every distress call went unanswered because they were off the established routes. She paused, the memory clearly painful. By the time a passing freighter found them by chance, 30% of the colonists had died, mostly the elderly who had given up their rations for the children. After that, we changed our deep space protocols. Every distress call gets answered, no matter the origin, no matter the distance, because we know what it means to drift in the dark, hoping someone cares enough to look. The story silenced Tay. He had assumed the humans helped because they were naive, because they hadn't yet learned the cold equations of space travel that the Confederation had calculated over millennia. Now he wondered if perhaps they had learned something deeper, something the Confederation had forgotten. Over the next 15 days, Tay and his crew witnessed the humans' determination firsthand. When the radiation shielding problems worsened, the humans rigged additional protection from materials salvaged from non-essential systems. When 3 crew members fell ill from prolonged radiation exposure despite the medications, others volunteered to take their shifts. "Don't they complain?" Hana asked Tay privately, after witnessing 2 exhausted humans cheerfully accept extra duties. In the Confederation, there would be formal grievance procedures. "I believe their commitment comes from somewhere deeper than duty," Tay replied thoughtfully. "Captain Reyes calls it human nature, though I'm beginning to think it's something that transcends species." On the 18th day of their journey, the Dauntless long-range sensors detected the human outpost, a modest space station orbiting a rocky moon. As they approached, Tay joined Captain Reyes on the bridge, watching the station grow larger on the view screen. "It's not much," she admitted, "but it has advanced medical facilities and communication arrays that can reach Earth. From there, we can discuss more permanent arrangements for your crew." "And your mission?" Tay asked. How significantly have we delayed your original objectives? Reyes shrugged. Exploration can wait. Some things are more important. As the Dauntless carefully maneuvered both ships into the station's docking range, Tay watched the human crew, tired, some still recovering from radiation exposure yet working with undiminished focus. They had sacrificed without complaint, risked without hesitation. In all my years of service, Tay said quietly, I've never witnessed anything like these past weeks. The Confederation would benefit greatly from understanding your people better. And we from understanding yours, Reyes replied. Despite our differences, I think we have much to teach each other. The docking clamps engaged with a distant thud, securing both vessels to the station. Journey's end. But Tay suspected this was just the beginning of a much longer and more important voyage. 6 months after their rescue, Commander Tay stood before the High Council of the Galactic Confederation. The Grand Chamber, with its soaring, crystal arches and hovering light displays, was designed to intimidate visitors. Today it was filled to capacity. Counselors, diplomats, military officials, and cultural observers all gathered for this unprecedented hearing. Tay had spent weeks preparing for this moment. His formal uniform, newly replicated, felt stiff after months in human-provided clothing. Beside him stood Captain Elena Reyes, representing Earth and its colonies. The Council recognizes Commander Tay of the research vessel Eternal Light, announced the Chief Counselor, her 4 eyes blinking in the formal pattern of acknowledgement. You may present your petition. Tay stepped forward. Honored counselors, I come before you to formally recommend the acceptance of humanity, represented by the United Nations Space Command, as a Class 1 allied species to the Galactic Confederation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Class
1 designation was reserved for advanced civilizations with whom the Confederation shared full technological and cultural exchange. It had been over 3 centuries since any new species had been granted such status. Your recommendation violates
established protocols, stated one counselor, her tone neutral but challenging. Humanity has possessed faster-than-light capability for less than a century. Their development metrics fall well below Class 1 threshold requirements. I am aware of the protocols, Tay replied calmly. I petition for an exception based on demonstrated exceptional capacity. Exceptional in what manner? Asked another counselor. Their technological level is clearly insufficient. Technology is but one measure of advancement, Tay countered. The Confederation's founding principles speak of 6 pillars of civilization: technology, culture, ethics, stability, knowledge, and harmony. I submit that humanity's ethical development in particular exceeds our own. This bold statement caused another stir in the chamber. Claiming any species surpassed the Confederation in any category bordered on heresy. Explain, demanded the Chief Counselor. Tay activated the central display showing recorded footage from the Dauntless during their rescue and journey. When the Eternal Light was stranded, the Confederation applied the standard resource allocation formula and deemed rescue non-optimal. 73 lives were calculated as an acceptable loss. Tay's voice remained steady, though the memory still pained him. Humanity, upon detecting our distress call, diverted immediately to our aid, without calculation of return benefit. A pre-rational response, dismissed a counselor, emotional rather than logical. Is it pre-rational to value life inherently? Tay challenged. Or have we, in our pursuit of perfect efficiency, lost something essential? He advanced the footage, showing human crew members working tirelessly to repair the Eternal Light, taking radiation exposure to maintain the tow, sharing their limited supplies. These humans risked their lives for strangers, not just strangers, but aliens they had never encountered before. They did this not from naive emotionalism, but from a deeply held ethical framework that places helping others above self-interest when lives are at stake. Tay turned to face the council directly. Since returning, I have studied human history extensively. Their path to the stars has been neither smooth nor perfect. They have known war, prejudice, and cruelty, as have all species. but they have also demonstrated remarkable capacity for growth, for learning from their mistakes. A touching narrative, said an elder counselor, but insufficient basis for altering classification protocols established over millennia. Captain Reyes, who had remained silent per diplomatic protocol, shifted slightly beside Tay. He could sense her restraint, her human directness constrained by Confederation formality. Perhaps a demonstration would be more compelling than a narrative, Tay suggested. He nodded to an aide, who distributed data tablets to each counselor. What you are viewing is the complete technological database from the Eternal Light. Quantum, drive specifications, gravitational manipulation formulas, biological cataloging systems, all technology that was aboard our vessel. The counselors examined the tablets with increasing interest. This database was accessible to the humans during our time aboard their station, Tay continued. Captain Reyes and her crew had ample opportunity to copy, study, and potentially reverse engineer technologies centuries beyond their current capabilities. And did they? Asked the chief counselor, her tone sharp. They did not, Tay replied simply. When I asked Captain Reyes why, she told me that taking without permission would violate their ethics of first contact. They helped us with no expectation of technological exchange. He let that sink in before continuing. Counselors, the Confederation, measures advancement by age and technological achievement. By those metrics, humanity is indeed primitive. But consider this. In 70 years of faster-than-light capability, they have settled 11 worlds. It took us 500 years to reach that number. Different expansion models, objected a counselor. We prioritize sustainability. We prioritize caution, Tay corrected gently. Humanity prioritizes courage, the willingness to take calculated risks for potential rewards. Both approaches have merit, but combined, they could be transformative. Tay gestured to Captain Reyes, who now stepped forward. With the Council's permission, she said in carefully practiced Confederation formal speech, I would like to present Earth's proposal for alliance. After receiving a nod from the Chief Counselor, Reyes activated her own data device. The central display changed to show images of Earth, its colonies, and its ships. We offer open exchange of our propulsion technology, which, while less advanced than yours in many ways, uses principles your scientists haven't explored. We offer our expertise in adaptation and resource utilization in harsh environments. We offer our medical knowledge, which has taken different evolutionary paths than yours. She paused before adding, and we offer our perspective, a younger, species view of the universe and its possibilities. The council chamber remained silent as the counselors processed this presentation. Finally, the chief counselor spoke. This petition requires significant deliberation. The council will recess for 3 days before voting. Commander Tay, Captain Reyes, you are dismissed, but will remain available for questions. As they left the chamber, Reyes exhaled slowly. That seemed to go well. It's hard to read your counselors. Better than expected, Tay assured her. The fact that they didn't dismiss the petition immediately is significant. 3 days later, the council reconvened and announced their decision. Humanity would be granted Provisional Class 1 Allied status, a compromise that satisfied neither traditionalists nor progressives, but opened the door for deeper relations. What the council didn't know, couldn't have predicted, was how quickly their decision would reshape Confederation society from within. Within months, stories of the human rescue spread throughout Confederation space. Young officers began questioning the resource allocation formulas that had been gospel for millennia. Ship captains started responding to distress calls that previously would have been ignored as non-optimal interventions. On the primary Confederation Military Academy, a group of cadets created an unofficial doctrine they called the Human Protocol, a commitment to answer any call for help, regardless of calculated benefit. When Academy officials attempted to suppress this movement as disruptive, they found it had already spread to a dozen worlds. 2 years after the Eternal Light's rescue, a Confederation survey vessel diverted from its assigned route to answer a distress call from an unknown source. The resource expenditure was calculated at 382% above optimal allocation. When questioned by command, the captain simply replied, "Some things are worth more than optimal allocation. That's what the humans taught us." The message resonated across Confederation space in a way no one had anticipated. A civilization that had grown comfortable in its perfect mathematics was rediscovering something it had calculated away centuries ago: the value of helping others simply because they need help. Commander Tay, now serving as the primary liaison to humanity, watched these changes with quiet satisfaction. The Eternal Light's distress call had been answered by a small human vessel that defied the cold silence of space. The ripples from that simple act of courage would continue spreading across the stars for generations to come. The Confederation was learning what the humans already knew. Sometimes the most important calculations are the ones you choose not to make.